Hi, Dr. Rob. It's great to have you participating tonight. This is a bonus. So
Well, Tammy, I'm having a doggone good
mm,
evening, and I'm
there you
glad
go.
to talk to you as always. So we got questions
So
lined up.
we have, as the first question, as a betrayed partner, recent finding out mid-April. So, it's just been 6, 7 weeks. Further reveals a few weeks ago what is best guideline for keeping clear of the betrayer's lack of motivation in their recovery. This is a great question, and we talk about this stuff all the time. So,
Tammy,
um,
why don't you
I was going to
start?
say, I think I'm going to kick it off. So we have a betrayed partner work group starting again. I'll look up the date and I'll put the link in the chat in just a minute. But I think it's the 23rd, and that's with Angela Spearman. And these are for those of you that are in early discovery, finding out, going, what do I do? That is how, I mean, she does a great job. Angela Spearman does a great job of facilitating a group, and it's about healthy boundaries. You can't control what your betrayer is doing or not doing, but you can turn to others who are also betrayed and have been on this journey and get support and get some foundational pieces. So I would highly recommend that you choose to participate in that. The work groups, let me back up and tell you, we had a men's sex addiction 101 that started an hour ago. And these are all live facilitated groups, 6 weeks, 90 minutes per week, low cost. Most of them are like $395 for the entire 6 week course. They come out of much of the work that Dr. Rob created, like Out of the Doghouse, Sex Addiction 101, Codependence. Those are foundational components. And then we have groups such as Going Deeper with Dr. Eddie Caparucci that also starts this month, and he only offers this twice a year. So this is a great opportunity to work on inner child, or Why Men Struggle to Love, again with Dr. Eddie, Attachment Wounds with Troy Love. So these are designed to be foundational components, and then continuing the journey. Don't start with, the graduate level stuff, start with the foundational ones. But for betrayed partners that are going, I don't even know where to start, that's where to start. That will help you. Separately, then we have like drop-in groups, et cetera, that will help you, have more people to connect with. But, when you're talking about their lack of motivation, you can't make somebody have motivation, but Dr. Rob says this all the time too. You start holding up a healthy boundary about something, and we get lots of guys that come to treatment, who have been wishy-washy for a longer period of time, and all of a sudden something changes where their partner is going like, yep, boundary, and they're going like, oh, I need help. They finally get it. So you're not alone. I'm so glad you're here. Dr. Rob, I'm going to go look for that information, but
Resource.
yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wrote a few words down. First one is learn, and I think Tammy mentioned that, which is, there are some wonderful books on betrayed partners and what to work on and how to look at it. And I think the more you can learn and try to stick with people who aren't crazy, because a lot of therapists are just plain nutso, in my opinion. And so, by the way, on our website, which is seekingintegrity.com, there is a list of books for betrayed partners, and you can take a look, and there'll be some there. We don't put them up there unless they're useful or we believe in them. So just to say that. So learn, connect. Tammy is, as always, amazing. I mean, here's the deal. We can't do this alone. The addicts can't do this alone, and partners can't do this alone. When you're alone, you are stuck with, what did I do wrong? I hate myself. I hate him. I don't know how to move forward. When you're connected, you see other men or women, depending on what group you're in, you see people ahead of you who've kind of down the road with their cheating partner, and what do they do and where are they at? And you see people behind you, and they're just starting the journey, maybe even sooner than you. And so to be in that space of understanding where you fit in and what the people who are role models are doing is invaluable. And by the way, they're free, right? And you can go into those rooms anonymously. You can, put your hand over your camera and fake your name, or even not say anything, but just listen to what people have to say. Now, I know a lot of women will go in those groups and say, oh, well, those women are dealing with a level of betrayal that isn't anything like mine. I always suggest that you look for the similarities rather than the differences, because I can always pick something apart, but to see where I fit in, I think is more important. By the way, in those groups, you can say, would anyone give me a call? Here's my email address. And there will be people who will show up for you and say, your story similar to mine, how can I help you? The other thing I wrote down was what Tammy talked about, boundaries. I think of some specific ones, like, are you sleeping together? Because under these circumstances, I would say, you know what? I don't want you in my bed. You can go somewhere else. You can go to the couch, wherever you want, but I don't want to sleep with someone I don't want, and I'm just talking about sleeping. Sex is off the table for sure. And some spouses make the mistake of thinking, well, if I have a lot more sex with him or her, then they're not going to do this anymore. Or I'll prove to them what a great sex partner I am, and then they won't want this anymore. And none of that works because, the people I work with had this problem long before they met you, and they are playing it out with you, but they play it out. And I'll just say this quickly, because I live in Hollywood, I had the opportunity many years ago to work with one of the most beautiful women in the world, acknowledged by everyone in the world, like Bob. And I got to work with her, which was very unusual. I don't usually get those people, but she came in, and by the kind of person, by the way, that you see the bus going by and you see their face there. And then I saw her in therapy. It was like overwhelming. But anyway, um, really on the top 5 of the most beautiful women in the world, and her husband was cheating and acting out and seeing sex workers and massage, and she said, am I not attractive enough? And I'm thinking, here you are, the whole world is at your feet, looking at how beautiful you are as a person and externally, and you're worried about, do you have enough to keep this person occupied? And so I just want you to know, it's not about you. It's not about how sexy you can be, how hot you are, how much weight you lose, about, any of that. It's about, no matter what, I'm going to act out this problem. So set your boundaries. I'm not going to sleep with you. I'm not going to go to bed with you. I'm not going to be sexual with you. Whatever it is for you that, and I say that, I haven't said this in a while, but why would you sleep with someone you don't trust? Why would you say to your daughter, oh, go ahead and sleep with that person? I know you don't trust them. So if you don't trust him, then don't let him in your bed. And that is a simple boundary. And the boundary is, I don't feel safe with you here. And so for me, not for you to punish you, but for me, I feel safer if you're not here. And who can argue with that? So yeah, you need to take some actions that protect you, that show him that you are more valuable than he's been willing to acknowledge. So that's my big answer to that.
And all, all good stuff. So healthy boundaries like feel overwhelming for partners. So I'm putting in the chat right now, there's an empowered women's retreat, and we talk a lot about this, internal boundaries and external boundaries. And I'm sure that sounds like, well, gobbledygook right now, but everybody needs healthy boundaries, and this is not punishment or control. It's like, you are not safe for me. You are not taking care of me. I need to take care of myself. And, the more that you are willing to own that I deserve to take care of myself, I deserve to be treated in a certain way, the easier it gets. It's not easy. So I put a bunch of things in the chat. So for those of you that are watching afterwards, on our seekingintegrity.com site, the work groups, there's also links to a self-assessment. That's a great place to start, because somebody who scores a 5 on the self-assessment versus somebody who scores a 15, very different resources that will be helpful for someone on that process. So that's a good place to start. It's not the same as what we use for clients coming into our residential treatment program. That's far more comprehensive, but it's a good little, quick scan. I also put videos. So this and other videos are on the video link. This will be after this is done, but Debbie McCrae does a great job of like unpacking some things for partners specifically. Her work is great, but for partners in particular, she really does a very good job of, here's some practical things to do. So when it feels very overwhelming, it gives you, a place to start. And like Dr. Rob said, it isn't about, sex addiction isn't about sex. And like, it doesn't matter what you look like, what you do. It was never about the partner. Nothing you did or didn't do caused this.
But we will blame you. We'll say to
Oh,
you,
sure.
oh, I'm doing this because we're entitled. That's the number one reason addicts act out, by the way, is entitlement. I deserve this. And then the other side of that is, I deserve this because you're too fat, or you're mean to me, or you're not as available, or you're always involved with this, or you're never around. Therefore, or you're always with the kids. So I deserve to go do this. And the truth is that I don't care if you're, if the worst thing in the world happened to you, there are a lot of choices you can make other than going out and having sex with someone else. So you don't like your marriage, leave it. But I feel like this is going in. If you don't like your marriage, leave it, but don't cheat on your spouse and make them miserable and feel like you're entitled to it. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, and by the way, I had a couple that I was working with because I do 2-hour consultations, and I usually do them with people who are in this place, which is how do we move forward? We've tried this, we've tried that. A lot of times, wives will, please forgive me, drag their addict spouses online to meet me for a consultation, and my job basically is we lay out all of the truth, and then we turn to the addict and say, how do you think, hearing all of this, you want to move forward? So the reason I said that is because and you can reach out to Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com if you want to consult with me. You get my full attention for about 2.5 hours. But in any case, one of the things that the partner I was talking to said today was, I don't believe anything he says. He said so many things so many times, and I will say this to you. It doesn't matter what we say, it matters what we do. So betrayer's lack of motivation would mean to me not going to therapy for this, not going to my podcast, not going to some of the educational groups that we offer. Basically saying I'm sorry, and gee, maybe I have the problem, maybe I don't. I'll read a book or I'll listen to a podcast. It's not about. And by the way, most of you partners, I love this question. When I'm on a consult and I say to the spouse, okay, so there's a podcast, there's a blog, there's a book, there's a whatever. Who found this? I did, says the spouse. And then I gave it all to him or her. Well, why are you doing all the discovering and throwing it at that person saying, here's how you get better? It would be really nice if some addict at some point would say, I need to take my own agency here and take responsibility for my problem. So their actions and their taking responsibility in real time is how you will see motivation. Let's keep moving.
Well, but before you and all good, and I agree with you. And I also think lack of motivation can also be fear. Like I'm scared. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know how to live life without my maladaptive coping mechanisms. Again, sex addiction isn't about sex, and so. And I often say, addicts will not change until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. So as long as, like it's uncomfortable, but he's probably kind of used to where it is. And even if and I'm not saying you're nagging, but he can hear nag, 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 but he's used to that, and he doesn't really have to change. So until something changes, another one I say, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I'm inviting you, partner, to take, I'm going to take care of me. And that can often be the wall that, an addict will bump up against and go, oh, wait, I think I actually do need to do something. It doesn't always work. Trust me. Some addicts are completely dedicated to, I'm not going to change no matter what, but that's also data for you to consider as you move forward too. You are really early in this process, so lean into the support,
right.
For you.
Learn, connect, and don't let this person in your bed. Connect, learn, and bet. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so can porn-induced erectile dysfunction ever be incurable?
Well, I think you mean, is it incurable? And so let me say what that is. For some people, men in particular, mostly men, they get so involved with porn that it becomes their go-to for sex and sexual arousal. And it isn't generally just 5 minutes. It's a lot of dedicated time. It's feeling connected to these people. And so they get really aroused and excited, and, sex is no problem with themselves. But what they're used to is this continuing array of this body and that body and this new thing. And so what the person who has this kind of porn addiction, what happens to them is their level of what it takes to be excited gets really high because that's what they're used to. And then to turn to a spouse or someone you care about and try to be sexual, or try to be sexual with yourself without all of that intensity, it doesn't work. And so, yes, if it's not, so my answer is yes. When the porn gets stopped within a reasonable period of time, your brain will settle back in, and that level of intensity will not be required for you to be sexual. Just related to the porn-induced erectile doesn't mean you're going to be fixed or any of the other problems are going to be solved, but simply by moving away from the porn and stopping it and being committed to that, the level of intensity that you seek for sex will go down, unless you now find yourself going to massage parlors. You now find yourself going to strip clubs, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that went from here to there, or maybe you're doing both. But you have to get out of all of it and not just put away this piece or that piece. And a lot of times people come to me, or men come to me, and they say, well, I'm not going to have affairs. I'm not going to go to the massage. I know all of that is bad, and paying people for sex, but the porn's not a problem for me. I'm fine with that. And then I say, I'm not sure. And then they say, oh, well, you're just anti-porn. And my response is, no, I'm pro your relationship. You're keeping your job, you're getting erections, and I'm on your side. But I think you need to put the whole thing down to really get a sense of where you are and what's going on. So, no, I don't think so. However, I have to act as a very well-trained therapist and say this to you. You have to see a doctor, a physician, a urologist, and make sure that there aren't physical issues related to your erections. And it's always best for every therapist, by the way, when any issue comes up, for us to say, gee, have you had a health checkup? Or because you never know when something is coming from something else. And I'm not a physician. And then we have to look at, are you depressed? And is there some emotional things that are so difficult that nobody could get excited because feel so bad and, can't get out of bed and all that stuff. And then we can begin to look at the problem. So I would suggest that you make sure that, by the way, don't drag your feet and say, oh, I can look at a porn for another 3 weeks. It's like 3 weeks. I can't get an appointment with my doctor. You need to make the commitment to change now. By the way, we do have a porn 101 course, and this is not therapy. This is to supplement therapy. What these courses are, by the way, just to say it, is I was a therapist, an individual therapist for a long time. Now I run the treatment center. But I can say that in an hour with a client, there wasn't time to pull out a whiteboard and explain it to them. I had to deal with what was going on in the room. What I notice in treatment centers like the one we run is there's a lot of education that we need to not meet you here, but also meet you here. So when people are only in outpatient therapy, they don't get all that education. They don't get all that interactive. So the courses are interactive. They have a workbook. You have to do homework. You have to check in with other people. And so it is designed specifically to help you understand your problem here. And that helps bring it down here, which hopefully the therapist is doing. It ties the pieces together. But anyway, there is a porn addiction 101 course. And I think, what is addiction? How does porn relate to it? How could sex be addictive? How do I find my way out? How did I get here? How do I stop? I mean, those are all very concrete things that need to be discussed and organized and all of that stuff. So anyway, I don't think it's a problem to stop. I'm sorry, I think you absolutely, if you had healthy erections before, and if you're getting erections looking at the porn, then you probably don't have an erectile problem. You have a porn and intimacy problem. If you haven't had an erection in 5 years, that might be a whole other issue. So it's complicated and it isn't. But before you get any answers, put the porn down, put all the anonymous sex down, whatever the heck you're doing, and then see what happens. Try this. Take 15 days, a week, and don't be sexual at all. Not with yourself, not other people. I'm not saying months and months, because no one, when they hear that, they go, oh my God. But just take a week till we meet again and say, I'm not going to look at porn and I'm not going to be sexual with anybody, and see what comes up for you. Ooh, that wasn't right, Tammy. What comes up for you? That's not quite what I meant. But see how the issue shows up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So Tammy, I'm going to toss this to you.
Well, the only thing, I'll agree. The only thing I'm going to add, and you said it, but I want to hone in on, and don't switch to other forms of problematic behavior, like non-porn porn, TikTok, Instagram, lots of titillating information in there. Don't switch to, cannabis and alcohol. And it's don't switch to another form of compulsive behaviors and expect everything. Oh, well, I waited a week or 15 days or whatever, and nothing changed. Well, what we do at our residential treatment program is we're looking holistically, because if you're leaving these things, we're a non-smoke, non-vape facility, because smoking and vaping, you're 9 times more likely to relapse. So all of those things have to be looked at, in layers. I know some of them are the drinking or drugging. You got to stop that first. You can't work on your sex addiction if you're still active in those things. So, but the other thing I was thinking of is, it's easy to focus on the erection, I will make sure that
Keep
video
going.
doesn't.
Keep
Yeah,
going.
I know. Yeah,
Just
but
keep
it's
moving. Keep
No, yeah,
moving.
yeah, but it's like one of those things where
Well, it's like
like
focusing on performance, right?
yes, exactly. That's what I was going at. Like,
Right. That's a
it
good
isn't
point.
about that. Like it's about connection. And that's what all of this
Right.
stuff that we're talking about. It's about are you connected with a person in a real and meaningful way? And then it isn't so much about, do you have an erection or not? So that was my thought.
And I will just add that sex addicts, we are very good at chasing intensity, especially sexual intensity, but we're not very good at intimacy. And I think that actually run from intimacy, which is what we most need to fill us up into situations that leave us emptier and emptier. So I do want to say one more thing about this, Tammy, that there are books and information out there like, well, if you just stop for 90 days, your brain will reset,
I hate those
and
things. Yeah.
our brain does not reset, it adapts, we learn, and there is no day in which a switch is turned like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to, it's a process. And it isn't nothing in your brain is going to switch on or switch off. You are slowly going to stop doing well, you're going to quickly stop the behavior and slowly begin to realize, hopefully, what your real needs are, what connection means to you. I said to a man today in consultation that, some people think they're running toward something like an affair partner, but what they're really doing is running away. And this is it was terrified of intimacy, but it's so much easier to run to a stranger. And then the strangers don't fill him up. So he runs back to the relationship, but the intimacy scares him, and back and forth and back and forth. So your brain is not going to click off. And what you really long for is intimacy. But you can't have that when you're lying and cheating and all of that. So next question.
Yeah, yes, and I appreciate you sharing it. Like everybody else, your brain's going to rewire in 90 days. Like everything's going to fuse together, and it's all going to be different. And poof, no. But anyway, okay. As an addict in recovery, I still struggle with freezing up in conversations or feelings of fear, escape, shame when in tough conversations with my partner. And I'm aware of these feelings and change in my body and energy. Once this happens, it often feels like the conversation is over and I can't get out of my own head and selfish feelings. What are some tools or ways to reconnect to the conversation to return safely to my partner in the conversation without having to take a break or cause more harm?
I'm writing down notes. So I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is that you need to tell her. When you're not in the midst of a fight or an argument, when you're having a reasonably good walk or talk, you say, look, I need to, you tell her this, take a picture, read this to her. Sometimes I just shut down and I want to be connected to you. And it's not that you're getting upset with me. It's just I can't handle it, which a lot of our addicts can't. And I just shut down. Tell her that. And then have a plan. By the way, there's nothing wrong with walking away if it is planned. We call these, what do we call these, Tammy? We call these
Like a
um,
timeout, a little,
a
yeah.
timeout, which is, and you practice them when things are good, like I'm going to take 15 minutes, I'm going to take a walk or work in the garage, whatever, and I'm going to come back. So you practice this and know this before you're actually in the fight. So when you're in the fight, your spouse doesn't come running after you saying, talk to me, and you're not, frozen. You are able to say, I need some time. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Let's calm down and come back to this. And hopefully, by the way, in that 15 minutes, you're connected to some kind of recovery people and you can call them and say, I'm losing my mind. I don't know what to do. And they will help you get grounded. So having a timeout is a healthy thing. What you describe as taking a break without having to take a break might be a really good thing, but you have to discuss it first so your partner doesn't think, oh, they're running away. And then when you're in it, you have to say, I'm taking that time out, but I will be back and I'll be back in 15 minutes. Just let me have the space. And, if they don't, then that's a whole other set of issues you guys need to talk about. Because, by the way, this is an addict's boundary. This is my boundary, which is in order for me to not feel overwhelmed and stay connected to you, this is what I need to do for me. I need to take time out. Isn't that good, Tammy? We get to have boundaries too. I did want to say something else, and this is something we really struggle with in residential treatment. And I don't think I have answers. I do have answers, which is the guys go through treatment, and I don't think if they're working, they get into their hearts, they begin to move aside from the self-hatred, they begin to understand their behavior and where it came from. They start to think about their partners and empathy and compassion and what they've done to their families, and they get a road toward healing. I mean, that's a lot of what our work is about. But sorry, I was going to say something about that. Um, but the thing is that we build up self-esteem We help you understand you're not a bad person, but you're really a broken person. And then you're feeling good about yourself. I'm talking about the residential program. And we build them up, not what they've been doing, that's not okay, but that there is a good part of them. There is a meaningful, and all you spouses know if you're staying with us, that there's something good in there somewhere that you're hoping will come out. Otherwise, you would have left a long time ago. And so the thing is, we really bring that out. And then the addicts go home to a very angry spouse, understandable, not blaming you guys. And slowly but surely, they kind of devolve into self-hatred. And, because they don't know, they feel they deserve to be yelled at. They deserve, and they can't fight you and so what I've been trying to understand and figure out is how do we help someone build up their self-esteem, face what they've done, take responsibility, feel good about the direction they're taking, and then they go home and deservedly so, they get a very upset partner, and then they begin to lose the gains that they've had. And the answer is that they cannot depend on you for their self-esteem. I hurt you. I disappointed you. I let you down. Now I can't come running to you and say, be nice to me, be supportive of me. You can say, wow, this is difficult to yourself, and I am responsible for this, and I'm feeling like I'm going to lose it or shut down. So let me connect with the person in my program. And that is in residential, what we do is we bond these guys. The group is what is more powerful than any of us. And these guys get a sense of what it would be like to really reach out to someone because we push them when I'm struggling. In other words, I might have a bad day in therapy and they come back and they're isolating or whatever that is. And someone says, hey, do you need some help? And they think, oh, I can't. So we train the guys to reach out for help. We also let them know that it isn't going to come from you, and nor should it. Your job is to be angry, upset, question the relationship, and look and see how it's going. Our job is to listen and support your pain, which we caused, and then make sure we are stable and getting what we need from our support groups, from our therapy, and then we can come back and face the challenge. So in answer to your question, take a break, communicate about it. Tammy, maybe you could talk about the evening check-ins because I feel like
Yes.
I feel like something comes up and then it blows up rather than it being a regular.
I,
Could you
I, I
mention
w- I was
you were
thinking
already
the same
there?
thing too. Yeah, yeah, I was thinking. So this does feel like it comes out of nowhere. And I really think it's helpful. And I hear this from people who actually practice this, to have check-ins. Now, whether it's the Fanos, for just a couple minutes each day, but when it's a situation or a topic, having it a planned time a couple times a week for 20 minutes, not the 2 hour, we're going to get into
I
all of
vote
this
for every
stuff.
night. I vote for every night.
Well, yeah, I mean, a check-in every night, but
Right,
but
check-in.
for stuff, I think it's helpful to journal about it and have a plan, and so that I'm bringing what I really need to say, to the table, and it can be, okay, here's this, and we need more help. Okay, we're going to take this one to our therapist. Great. Now this is a topic that you can bring to your therapist and say, we got stuck on this point, and that can be helpful. The other thing I've heard, and I heard this more recently, of couples co-regulating in that,
Stan
like when they,
Tatkin. That is Stan
yeah,
Tatkin,
yeah,
is
yeah,
co-regulation.
yes. So like if you feel it, like, and I give you kudos honestly for being aware enough to start feeling it in your body and things, because as addicts we're really good at ignoring all the massive red flags that are coming up. But it's say like it would be okay to say, I'm starting to feel it in my body, can we do a breathing exercise together and have it planned, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to check and see if now are we okay to talk about this. And just that grounding, in the moment, could be enough without taking a 20-minute break. But I think if it's a difficult conversation or a topic that needs to have discussion that could cause, having a planned, we talk, on Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday nights, and it's at 7 o'clock and it's 20 minutes, and we set the timer so that it doesn't get into drama, and then we can bring it back or go with that, some, problem solving together. Cause then it's not being attacked. It's like, okay, here's the situation. And can we, as, very smart adults, come up with a plan that we can try, and we'll try it. And if it works,
I like
great. If
that,
it
Tammy,
doesn't, we can, yeah.
because you're talking about intellectual. So I've made a plan, which is for us to meet Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday for half an hour and check in to you
20 minutes.
spouses. Well, to you addicts. Spouses get triggered because they're in so much pain. And so they might see an ad on TV for, I don't know, for a movie, and the movie has someone who's a little bit, risque. They're not fully, they're showing it. And then the spouse will say, there's that person, like, you acted out. And so they get triggered. They see an ad on TV, they talk to a friend, they read something. It may not be anything to do with what's going on in the moment, but it brings up for them all the things that have happened. They get triggered, and then they may turn to you in a moment that seems perfectly fine, and they're really, really upset. I think one of the ways to manage all of this is, and I'm going to agree with Tammy, is for the spouses, write it down. It is not healthy all day long. Trust me. Well, what about this? What about, I just found this? And what about, it's not helpful. I'm going to use this word nicely, to hound us all day long about because I hope you know that the answers to our questions are never going to make you feel better. You will say, if I just know this, but what happens is that brings up a whole other set of questions. And I think spouses feel like, if I just know the answers, everything's going to get better. And the truth, or I can have control over it. And the truth is, it's all a it show, and there's knowing more is not going to make you feel better. At some point you should know everything, but not then. I do agree with Tammy. So spouses, you have a question, did you do this, I just thought of this, write it down. It keeps you out of drama in the middle of the day, in front of the kids, whatever. And then when you have that time out, you say, here are the things that I've written down that I'm really upset about, or I really want to answer, or whatever that is. And the same for you addicts. This is something I need to tell them. And so bring what you need to bring into the space that you've created, rather than having it everywhere, because life becomes a mess. But if you know that you have this time to look forward to when you will work on this, it just makes the days a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
I
Tammy.
agree. Yeah, but it's also like, as I'm journaling, I might go, that triggered me because of the way that person looks, and now my real fear is that I'm always going to be triggered, that my
Right.
spouse is always going to be. That's really what the fear is. It's not just that I saw this, but if I'm able to share in a real and meaningful way, gosh, I saw this image and immediately I thought about, are we ever going to be okay? Well, that's different than, you did this. And I mean, like, if you're, like we talked about Dr. Stan Tatkin, if you're looking to connect in a healthy relationship, then, it takes navigating the space, because you're not, you're not in a healthy relationship when somebody's had discovery of, all of the infidelities and everything else. So, okay, Dr. Rob,
Um,
the next one, go ahead.
do me a favor, Tammy. Dr. Tatkin has a method of treatment, and he
Yeah, the
trains
pact.
therapists in
Uh-huh.
this, hacked. And I really, really recommend, not if you're in active addiction, it's a waste of time, you need to see, but for couples who've gotten past the immediacy, I don't think there's a better way to build intimacy and move beyond. I mean, if you're in the crisis, as Dr. Tatkin says, don't bother, can't help you.
Right.
But if you're really in a place of, I think the immediate crisis has passed. We were really in a place we want to move forward, but we're not sure how. We've stopped the yelling, the upset, the drama, the you're doing this, but we're not sure how to move forward. I think he does amazing work, and I've done a couple of podcasts with him.
I was just putting them
Um,
on. Yeah.
and there aren't a lot of therapists I really admire, but I think he's a role model, and he's also a friend. And if I were starting out new, I would take the PAC training, and I'd be that kind of therapist, because I think the work is amazing. So thank you, Tammy.
Yeah, and I do too. I just put the podcast in the chat, but I looked it up. January of 2019, you did We Do with Dr. Stan Tatkin, and I refer to that one all the time because it's in a healthy relationship. This is what we are striving for. In an unhealthy relationship, we are neither one, safe or good or healthy or anything else. So why would we not want, for ourselves, all of the good things that a healthy relationship brings? So anyway, okay, so the next question, Dr. Rob, can you talk more about, it's not about sex? Because to a betrayed partner, it's all about sex. That's why they desire, that's what they want. It's hard for a partner to understand this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I feel sad about when I hear this question. So for us, if I was an alcoholic, if I had a gambling problem, forget drugs and alcohol, if I had a gambling problem or an eating problem, um, or a spending problem, it would be difficult for you. You would not like my gambling problem. You would be furious about the money, upset about this, I lied to you, credit cards, all that stuff. But it wouldn't be personal. it would be like, how can he or she do this to us, to the family, when we need the money, etc. But it wouldn't be, you promised that you would respect my love, my body, and we agreed that this is what it was going to be between us in the most intimate, and now you violated me. You violated my body, you violated my sense of our marriage. And you can't go around, by the way, and say, you can say to someone, oh, my husband has a gambling problem, or my wife drinks a lot. But try to say to a neighbor, well, my husband has sex with 150 other people. So you're in this situation where sex is already shameful. You don't have anyone to talk about it with. And it's sex. It's a direct line to intimacy, love, relationship. Do you care about me? What did our vows mean? All it is the deepest, most personal place that I can feel vulnerable and loved. And the sex should come out of the vulnerability and the love that's already there. So if I had a gambling or spending problem, you wouldn't take it personally. You might be angry, you might be mad, but you're probably going to say, well, you're effed up and you need to get help, and because you're hurting our family with the money issues. But if you're cheating, then you're cheating on me. And it becomes a much, much more personal issue. So we are not, so just to say it, we'll have sex with a rock. It doesn't matter about what we're looking for. We're not looking to escape you or get away from you. We're looking for whatever we can find sexually. But for the spouse, how could you not feel like they don't want me anymore, or it's my body, or I'm involved with the wrong person, or how could you not feel that way? And so part of the challenge for us is helping the spouses get to the point again where you realize that he or she's been doing this for 15, 20 years before I even met them. I did a consultation today where I said to a gentleman, what happened to your first marriage? Well, I was cheating on her. Well, what happened to the second one? Well, I gave her an STD. Okay, now you're in your third marriage. Both of them have been ruined by sexual acting out. And then we can begin to see the pattern, whatever's going on with him. But the point is that he cheated on the first one when he was 20, and he cheated on the second one when he was 35. Of course, he's going to cheat on you. So intimately and emotionally, in terms of your loving yourself, you feel like someone has just stabbed you in the heart, because if they love me, how could they do this to me? If it was gambling, how could they do this to the family? It's much less personal. So I can't help you with this, because you will always, every spouse will feel this way. You are personally, physically, and emotionally violated. And no matter how much you understand this or I explain it to you, it's where everybody goes. And so I think there is a difficult line to walk between, it's a very difficult line to walk between, it isn't about my being unattractive, it isn't about me being undesirable, it isn't about the love that someone has for me. It's about that they're really effed up and they would do this to anybody. And I think part of what Tammy is saying about the betrayed partners group, maybe you could talk a little bit about when they come together in the intensive, or they do a betrayed partners online class. I mean, how do they get clarity around this? Because I think they do, and you've been present for that, Tammy. Tammy's, by the way, involved with the intensives with the women, and I just love that. But anyway,
I love that. It is amazing to see the amount of healing that partners can in a weekend. They're Empowered Women Retreat. The next one is August 15th through 18th. We're filling up already for that particular one. We still have spots, but it's like, I'm so excited because the shift for people, and there's different modalities, and it's all good and it's relevant, but what I really see is people coming into their own space. One of the things I tell partners all the time is, of course you can't understand this. You would not do this. Your brain does not think like an addict. We're addicts. We get it. Like I'm not saying we justify it. I do not justify it, and it's a reason, not an excuse. But but partners they would never think to do this, and so they can't ever completely understand, other than knowing that the person has brokenness, and these patterns are, there's underlying issues, like all of those things, and it doesn't help with how hurtful it is on a personal basis. And with the Empowered Women's Retreat, we're working on practical things, healthy boundaries. We're working on releasing anger, getting in touch with it. Some people just have not even gotten to the anger part. Some have, but it's, how do we process through this? How do we create like Dr. Rob was talking about with the guys that come to treatment, it's creating those connections. And we have a continuing thing, and I subbed in yesterday, with these women. I hadn't gotten to see them since March, and I did. And like, they've come from all different walks of life, and they are a group of people who genuinely care and support each other. Like, they'd go to the mat for each other. Like, that's different than you get from your friends, your girlfriends or whatever. And I love that about, creating those connections. You are not alone. You don't have to be alone. You can heal. And this is really about healing you. We don't talk about the guys. Like, we do not talk about their behaviors. Like, it's about you. And so it's an opportunity for those that choose it. And I'm always really proud of the women who are willing to step into that space, because it's really easy to go, well, it's about him. And this is saying, no, I'm taking care of me. I'm willing to take care of me in this moment, and walk into a room of other women that you don't know, and you will. Okay,
Thank you,
next
Tammy.
one. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. They're very emotional for me too, like, really, but it's so worth it. Okay, we are very early in discovery, and we're not from the USA. Our CSAT and SSA only options towards recovery. What other options to get better with PASA? Oh my gosh, the online work group. So the Sex Addiction 101 is just
Hey,
finishing up
Tammy, I
now.
don't mean to,
Yeah.
can you slow down just a little bit? Because I want them to really hear specifically what you're telling them about and what you're recommending, if you don't mind.
Everything but residential treatment and the Empowered Women's Retreat are online. People from all over the world participate in drop-in groups, webinars like this. You're on this. There's 12 step. If you email me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity, I have an email and it talks about 12 step. We are not affiliated with 12 step, but I've got, information and resources for you. So, and we have guys that have come from all over the world, like all over the world, for residential help. So no, those are not the only options. And there are many, many different groups, our drop-in groups and webinars, the online work groups. Again, people from all over the world. I've already put in the chat the links to those. But like, no, this is a universal issue, and we have people all over the world. Dr. Rob does expert consultations with people all over the world. I mean, all over the world. So
Well, we have
as long as they're
people, I
English
won't be
speaking.
detailed, but we have someone from Europe in treatment right now. We have someone from Africa in treatment right now. People don't hesitate to reach out to us and find us. A couple of other things, really quickly. I think the podcast, there's a reason we have 1.4 million downloads or something like that, because people learn, and a lot of times the spouses will listen to everything, and they'll say to their addict partner, "You listen to this," and there's a lot of good information in there. Tammy, I think, and I could be wrong, I really could be wrong, that we can make referrals to therapists in the States because they can
Yes,
talk to
but they were
people
saying,
overseas.
yes, but they already said our CSATs and SAA the only options, and so they already
Well,
are aware that CSATs can work with therapists, and I know
right, but I
therapists in
think
other countries too.
so. I read this differently. What I read is, because we live somewhere else and we can't access a CSAT and SSA, are those our only options? That's how I read that. But anyway, the point is, if you want a therapist and you live overseas, Tammy has the ability to refer to you. We make that happen all the time.
I do.
Um, and we know therapists in certain countries, depending on the country, who do this work.
Yes,
So
and there are countries that they
TAMI
have
at,
none. Yeah, yeah, but yes, I won't say some countries that I've, but I was like, oh, that's a new country. I hadn't talked to somebody there yet. So, like, yes, that happens
well, I've done
regularly. I get
trainings in
calls.
Australia and England and Germany. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
we do know some folks.
yes. Okay, as a betrayed partner, how long can we go without having physical intimacy towards your partner after discovery? I found my partner video calling escorts just 1 month ago. I see him taking efforts to be clean, but I don't see a path towards intimacy in the future at all. I'm gonna like you're talking about sex. I'm like, and I'm telling you, I say this all the time. Sex addicts prove that sex can happen without any intimacy. So I'm gonna parse that out. You're looking for physical connection and sex with your partner who is an addict. So go ahead, Dr. Rob.
Uh, uh, I'm sorry, I got stuck. So I actually looked up the word intimacy, and I want to read to you what it says, because think about sex and think about what this says. And I love this. I wish I could have written myself. So it's just a list. I'll read the top 10. So I asked I went online and I asked, list 15 words that describe intimacy. Here's what they are. Trust, number one. Vulnerability, number two. Closeness, connection, affection, understanding, compassion, sharing, comfort, acceptance, communication, bonding, love, presence, and empathy. In all 15, there was not a word about sex. And people think intimacy is sex. Intimacy is the outcome of all of those things. It is produced by those things. We don't have sex and then it was that the sex has to come from all of that. The sex can't push us toward all of that. And so I would ask myself, when should we start being emotionally intimate? You know, a lot of partners, and this happens on the consultations all the time, where I say to a spouse, or in treatment, where we read a letter that the spouse has sent, and you know this, Tammy. Not, I always thought that when we heard from the spouses in their deepest moments, that what hurt them the most was sex with someone else. Of course, I mean, but when I read your letters and I listen to you, it's a lack of intimacy. It's years of saying, talk to me about this. No, I don't have time. I really have a problem with this. Well, that's your problem. How are we going to deal with this? I don't know. I'm busy. It's constantly being rebuffed. It's the opportunity to be intimate. If I turn around and I say, well, let's talk about this, or I'm open to that. But addicts tend to say, I don't want to deal with it. And that's the opposite. That's anti-intimacy. And so many partners with active addicts, if not all of them, have suffered from the lack of, and some of them have said, well, I guess this is just the way my marriage is. I mean, this is how it's going to go. They're unavailable to me, and moved on to get needs met through friends and family and all of that. That's great, but it's nothing like being with the one you love and getting those needs met with them. We teach a whole class, and there's homework in residential treatment on what are your emotional needs and where do you go to get them met, and how would you know they were getting met? And then I ask them, now, what do you think your spouse's emotional needs are? So we spend a lot of time looking at support, love, connection, intimacy. And I think that I wish I could like stamp it on every couple's forehead that sex comes out of emotional intimacy and vulnerability. Um, Sex does not create connection and emotional vulnerability. So, by the way, how long? Oh, video escorts. Oh, I wrote one more down, STDs.
Thank you.
And
I
I'll
was
say
going to say
this
the
to
same thing.
all of you spouses: if you believe that your partner is still acting out, you want to have sex with them? It's a condom. It's a dental nail. It's whatever it takes, because we lie. And there are a number of patients that I've had in residential at Seeking Integrity who they didn't even know they had a thing, whatever the disease was. And their spouse would, and by the way, their spouse would get a disease and come to them, and basically the addicts would say, "Oh, you must have gotten that from a toilet seat." I mean, we lie, and we lie to ourselves. So we might go and say, "Well, I don't think I have HIV." But what about human papilloma virus, HPV, which can lead to cervical cancer in women? We don't think
Hmm.
about the thing if it's not. So please, nothing else. Please protect yourselves, because you don't know where I've been or what I was doing, and I'm lying. Yeah, so that was I was
Well, and I was going to say, and if you think he was just video calling, still get an STD test. Yeah, like this happens all the time. The Empowered Women's Retreat, Dr. Rob said, they talk about healthy sexuality and treatment. Well, we talk about that with partners too, and lots of partners don't even know what is right for them anymore. And we talk about taking care of yourself physically. That physical safety is I'm taking care of my body, and that includes getting an STD test. So even if he says, oh, nope, I can't tell you how many partners end up with an STD, even though they were like, he said he was just watching porn. Nope. Yeah, so take care of you.
and Tammy, I have to say that we didn't talk about this, but at the height of COVID, when everyone, I mean, before we even knew what it was, and everyone's like, afraid to touch the door at the grocery store. I had guys going out and seeing sex workers or their affair partner. Oh, they don't have COVID. They wouldn't get it, but they got kids at home or grandma at home. And they're not thinking about that because they're thinking, well, I'm not going to get COVID or they're not going to have it or whatever it is. So even in the moment we had a crisis, it didn't stop us from acting out. That's what we do. Tammy, let's keep moving.
One more quick thing on this. I don't see a path towards intimacy in the future at all. You're a month in, like that is so that I would invite you to move that so far off your immediate list. You've got enough issues, to deal with right now to find safety for you. And like Dr. Rob said, I mean, you're just sending a message, but this is not someone I would trust at all. Like, what actions, is this person taking? How many 12-step groups is he going to? Was he in the sex addiction 101 that started, at 4 o'clock today? Or is he in the porn addiction 101 that starts next week? What is he doing to be different? Because if it's like, I just stopped, he didn't just stop. Okay. After a decade together, I broke up with a sex addict in early February. I have domestic abuse order for protection. I haven't worked in nearly 3 years due to trauma, and I can't go back to my former career due to very specific triggers. I have lost nearly everything, and he is trying to get me out of our home without buying me out because he can't live here with the OFP and I can't afford the mortgage. I've been doing drop-ins for 2 years and I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. And the more they spin, the deeper I fall into anger and hopelessness. Why do I miss him so much when he was and still is so awful to me? I've had depression my whole life. How does this complicate breaking a trauma bond? Thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry. And I've been on the drop-in groups. I know who you are. And I honor that you made a choice, that to move forward in a different way. And I can tell that you're in the midst of the, of the crisis and chaos. But I promised you, I know you enough, you will move through this. This is I'm in the deep right now, but you have lots of lifelines with people, that are there for you too. So, but Dr. Rob, can you talk about why do I miss him so much when he was and is so awful?
Well, I really appreciate that question because it feeds into things I've written about. I am completely and utterly, hear me out, against, with every fiber of my being, the concept of codependency because it puts responsibility on a spouse for something they've never done. There's nothing you could do. There's no part you have in my seeing 50 sex workers. There is this whole idea in my field that the spouse must be driving some of this, or the spouse must be or they're acting out their own issues, or, as I've said before, you can make me absolutely miserable and terrified, but I can go for a walk. I can divorce you. I can get, a lot of things I can do, but have sex with strangers. So, but I do, I want to speak. And so I wrote a book called Prodependence. And I took on codependency and I said, rather than blaming the spouses and the family members, why don't we look at it like if they had cancer? If they had the disease of cancer, you as a spouse would attend to them, support them, love them, and you would do what's logical, which is to be there for them. And everybody would say, what an angel, what a sweetheart. She or he's given up themselves to take care of the broken person. But maybe you're not staying there, just like with the cancer, because there's something wrong with you. The reason you're staying, and to counter what you're saying, we stay because we love the person. We love them. I saw a couple today, and after hearing their story, it's not hard to think, God, why does she stay with him? And the reason is that partners, spouses, you can still see the little gem inside of us. You hold the possibility for what us addicts could be with you. You see the part that you've always loved. And your hope is that maybe if things get better, they can see it too, and things will work out in the future. So I think it's absolutely sort of cruel to yourself to say, after all these things have happened to me, why do I still love them? I've worked with women in shelters where they've been beaten to crap. And they say, I don't understand why I still care about them, because you don't just shut off the switch and say, I'm done. There are people out in my life for 25 years, but I still think of them with love and affection. I've had people pass away. Well, they're dead. Why do you still love them? Well, because it's in my heart. And they don't just disappear because they're gone. It lives on in me. So please forgive yourself, all of you, for continuing to love and appreciate and value someone who has hurt you. I'm not saying that you should we are saying you have to set boundaries, that you don't shouldn't continue to let yourself get hurt, that you have to distance yourself to protect yourself, but don't be mean to yourself about still having feelings, because that's just human. Um, and that's what I wrote about codependence, basically, which is we don't stay because we're crazy. We stay because we love them and we hope that things are going to get better.
But
Other
one
thoughts?
boundary that Dr. Opp has talked about before is physical abuse is never okay. Boundaries are, more or less what you need for safety, but domestic abuse is never okay. So, you taking care of you, but I can imagine, I mean, this feels like it's time to do the grief work, and that takes time. It's not,
Mm,
going to be magically over. And, oh, like I've gone through
mhm.
this, it's not linear. So it's going to take some time. But be kind to yourself and give yourself the space, and lean into the support resources that you have. Um, and spending any time going, why do I still care? Like, you do, and you grief over the loss of the relationship you hope for, grief over the loss of the person you thought he could be. All of those things are real. And it will take some time.
I wanted to add
Okay,
that it sounds like you're involved with somebody who's really sick. I
yeah.
mean, if all of what you say is accurate, there's domestic violence, there's trying to take your home, or your half of the home away. Um, what I would feel in that situation is out of control with no ability to protect myself. And so I would ask you, how can you be empowered? And I know this is, I'm sure you've looked at this, but getting a lawyer, getting someone else to stand up for you, getting some of these women in these support groups to say, you don't have to do this, or you call me, or it feels like you're doing this on your own and that you're really struggling by yourself. And as a result, you're coming up with, why do I still have feelings about them? How could they do this to me? I'm so depressed and angry. I think it has to do with a lack of agency. Love that word. And you need to find ways that you can be empowered. Again, the reason we call the women's retreat empowered is a reason. How can you take your power back? Doesn't mean you can't love and care about them, but you cannot put yourself in situations where you are vulnerable to your life being out of control. That is something you have to do to protect yourself. And I have to say, I don't like this person you're involved with very much at all, because he's mean. And most addicts, by the way, we're not malicious. We don't intend to hurt you. We don't want to ruin our lives. Um, and to me, intent is everything. If I hurt you and I intended to hurt you, that's one thing. If I hurt you and I didn't mean to, it wasn't my intention to hurt you, that's a whole set of other things. And this sounds like someone who is so angry with you and so upset that his intention is to screw you over. And that worries me for you, and it makes me very sad. Um, yeah.
So I do want you to answer the next one because it's about
Sure.
codependence too. So the trade partner, my husband has had health issues and none have been life threatening. I have done all the work, but still have a hard time moving forward. He is in poor recovery and uses health issues to not do the work. Every doctor says his health is good. This has been going on for over
Mm.
4 years. We have a good therapist, codependent. I have boundaries, but I feel like things will never change. Married over 50 years. Stronger ideas to help me. I have been to groups, offered therapy, etc. Read all the books and listened to the podcast. I know better self-care. Should I just accept that this is the best it gets?
Tammy?
I'm going, come to the Empowered Women Retreat. Honestly, um, and I said earlier, nothing changes if nothing changes. You've got good boundaries. Yes, I mean he's using, and I feel bad for you. You know who I really feel bad for is him. He is accepting. I'm like in recovery.
Old man syndrome.
Well,
Just
it's not
giving
even
up.
old man. It's old addict with it,
Well,
and not in recovery. I mean,
right. Grumpy.
yeah, yeah. Like this is the dry drunk. I'm not going to do the work. We get a good life. We get connections in real and meaningful ways. But I hear a guy who's scared. and unwilling, and that is sad. But that does not mean you have to be tethered to him. Like do the work for you, and if he's unwilling to do his work, you know I love Debbie McCrae talks about her talking boundary is like, that may be your reality, and but like, you don't have to coddle him. He doesn't even have health issues. He's leaning into fake things. So I would love to have you come and get empowered. We can help you with that. So I'm a little annoyed
Um,
with that one. I'm like a lot annoyed with that one. 50
who
years
are
of
you annoyed with?
service to this guy. Well, this guy, like, that he's,
Oh, well,
being a poop.
well,
So
I think after 50 years, so one thing is, I don't know if you know where the old ladies posse, Tammy, so we had a bunch
I
of
will.
women who were older and their kids were grown, and they were no longer, it was just the two of them. And they said, we don't feel comfortable in a support group where there's a bunch of young moms or young people because they're dealing with different issues. So they asked that we set up a group, and they named it the Old Ladies Posse. We didn't name it, which is a group of women who are at that stage of life when they get. And so if you've been married 50 years, I think this would be a really good place for you to hang out with other women your age and talk about what you're dealing with now, because you're dealing with the hopes and dreams that you had for this time of life. Everything you thought you would have, everything you wanted, the peacefulness, the connection, that we're enjoying ourselves, we laugh, everything when the pressure's off of family and work, and yet here you are. I do hear a little bit, and this is just my sensitivity, but I do hear a little bit of, am I ever going to be happy again because he isn't changing? And there's two things to that. I don't suggest you accept the way it is forever, but you need to accept the reality as it is today, which is today your needs are not getting met. Today you're not being respected. Today nothing has changed. Today he's sitting in a chair saying, poor me. And that is at the moment who we are married to. Whether they change or not over time, I don't know. I don't think you know, but I don't think they're, sorry, but I don't, but this idea that do I hang in there or not, or should I maintain, I forgot the words that were used, I'm sorry. Should I accept as the best as it gets? I don't know what it's going to be 3 years from now, but this is the best as it gets right now. And so we say, I love this phrase, reality wins. Reality wins. And your reality is, this isn't what you'd want it to be. This isn't what anyone would want it to be, but it is your reality. And it is your reality today. So I think you have to live your life as if this is the way it is. By the way, I say to the older men in my group, because they think they're 25 and they're running around with, looking at pictures of 20-year-olds or hooking up with 30-year-olds. I think, I said to them, you're an old man, right? Oh, no, I'm not. Well, let's see, you're 72. I think you're an old man, but you're running around acting like a 30-year-old in terms of sex and romance and all of that stuff. And my statement to the older men, and please forgive me, is who's going to clean up your bottom in another 5 years? Who's going to help you get to the bathroom or take your pills? Or do you really think that this woman who's being treated this way is going to turn around and want to care for you or care or help you when you are more vulnerable? He doesn't understand the reality of how old he is and what life means. So one more thing, at 50 years, I don't think I'd sometimes people separate the ones we work with who are mostly younger. Like, I'm young enough to find someone else. I'm young enough to move on. The older folks tend to not move on because this is, who wants to move on at an older age? And besides, I've been with this person so long. But you can change the nature of relationship. You can say, if we were two friends living together, forget, how do I say this? You're going to have to take off some of your hopes and dreams and expectations because this is your marriage and there's nothing you can do about it, but you can begin to have a life where, yeah, he sleeps in the house. Yeah, you go for a walk. Yeah, you watch TV, but no sex, no intimacy, no hand holding. Think of him as like a friend. When he's there and you're having a good time, great. And when the rest of the time, and by the way, if you need someone to tend to him, get a nurse. Did you know that those of us who are of a certain age that Medicare will pay for someone to come to your house once or twice a week and take care of that person unless they're not really sick? So to what degree are you being played? Why, if every doctor has said that he's healthy, would you continue to let him elicit your sympathy. I hope that you're not bringing him meals, making his bed, giving him his pills, because if he's really ill, he'll have to learn how to do those things for himself because you're a friend and you need to focus on you. So to me, it's about changing the lens of how you see this relationship. It isn't what you would want. It isn't what you ever thought it would be, but here you are and you have needs and he's not going to get them met. I mean, emotional needs. How are you going to get your needs met? Rather than sometimes I think that the spouses are kind of knocking on our heads saying, when are you going to be available to me? We may never be available to you. We may be so broken that we can't. Even if we stop acting out, you have to. I really hope that you spouses embrace life and what it has to offer you without us being the key to your happiness. Would it be great if we got better? Yes. Would it be fantastic if we moved forward and we became the person you'd hoped for? Yes. But that's not true today. So how are you going to make your life fulfilled and happy, or at least at peace today with the reality of what is, knowing you can't change anybody? So Tammy's going like this. I think that means
I
she
am. I
agrees.
am. Yes.
I also think
Nodding my
it's
head.
supper time. My
No,
dog
no,
wants
but
to be fed.
I agree with everything you said. So reach out if we can be of help. Thank you all. Thanks, Dr. Rob. It was great to
I
have
was
you
on time
participate.
and I'm here.
You
And
were, and
Tammy,
I'm incredibly
I
grateful for
love
that,
working with
honestly.
you. Love, love, love working
Likewise.
with you.
Yes,
We're
yes.
having a good time.
Likewise.
Take care,
All
you
right.
guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.